So welcome to Tech Laughs and Bytes, Garnick. It's good to have you on our podcast. And of course, this episode is more about cloud services. But before we jump right into today's episode, I'm so itching to know a lot about your story, how you got into tech, how you fell in love with tech and stayed with tech over the years, and it would be great for you to just walk us through your journey into technology.
Sure. Yes. So thank you so much for having me. I do this already like 15 years, even more than 15 years. So basically, I was like, student in university back in my country, Armenia. So
Okay.
I started with like, Microsoft Access has the toolbox, like when you build like software and then you also write some Visual Basic code, right? So I started to learn this and build like small software and convince people, oh, look like what I built for you, right? So that they can use my software. Even I gave it for free, right? So yeah, that's how I started. And then I get into like tech companies back in my country. I started to, you know, work on my skills. So my education is not related to technology. I'm civil engineer.
Okay.
So yeah, and that's how I got into web development. And then later on, I built my own agency, and now I'm located in Vancouver, and I'm
Nice.
working also here as engineering lead.
Great. Awesome. Such an amazing shift, because obviously you didn't have any if you didn't study computer science, people always say, well, if I didn't do
Yeah.
computer science, then I probably won't be able to get into tech. So you have proved to everyone that you don't have to have a CS degree. You can definitely get into tech.
Yeah, because this is like more of a practical job, right? So you
Yeah.
need to do it. So only theory is not enough, right? So you
Yeah.
should work on it every day. You
Okay.
need to like understand every small piece of the software, right? So when you understand the whole picture and then when
Yeah.
you love it, you can
Yeah.
like really build like good software. So this is more of like, I sit and do it every day. Like,
Oh,
and
wow.
this is, you know, continuing process, right? And you learn every day.
Absolutely. Amazing. Really, really amazing to know your background story. Okay. So let's move over to cloud services. So we know that the whole idea of cloud services was invented because of, everybody wanted more security for the applications, more storage, and just some really other cool features and capabilities, right? And so it doesn't just allow software engineers to build their dream applications, but most importantly, it was to run smoother applications, just like a freshly buttered server rack. But sometimes the problem with this is
Mhm.
that it crashes. So my question is, how can we ensure that from day one, our applications run seamlessly within the cloud without any hiccups?
Yes, sure. So basically everything start to understand what are you going to build, right? Because
Okay.
cloud is like they have like so many different services, right? And
Okay.
one, like for example, if you want to like build and run API in server, you have
Okay.
so many options to do, right? For example, let's say in case you use AWS, you can use ECS, you can use UpRunner, you can use Kubernetes, right? So you
Yes.
can also set up your custom EC2. There are so many ways to do it. Okay, the question is what I'm building.
Mm-hmm.
So there are important 3 points, right?
Okay.
Scalability,
Okay.
performance, and
Okay.
security. These
Okay.
3 points are most important, like key points that you need to understand before building your cloud infrastructure, right? And
Okay.
base it on the business needs
Mm-hmm.
and like the nature of software, you choose the right like service in cloud. Regardless, you use AWS, you use GCP, you use Azure, or there are many new serverless like application, like serverless clouds, right? For example, Render, like so. Yeah, like to understand the need of business, nature of like the product, and then choose the right service in cloud.
Awesome. So we should be looking for scalability, performance, and security when we are choosing what the right service, the right cloud service we want to use. And with that, we will get a smooth application running on the cloud, right?
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
correct.
Okay, that's great. So speaking about the different cloud services that you just mentioned, so let's say AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Services. Let's say they are like nine cloud bouncers, right? And so basically they are like, well, no ID, no entry. But instead of checking your facts, they check tokens, policies, and roles, right? Now, can you walk us through how cloud services play the gatekeeper and make sure that no one is sneaking past the velvet rope through its identity management service?
Yeah, so this has two parts, right? This is security
Okay.
related question, and it has two parts. One is like coding, and one is in infrastructure layer. So
Okay.
both places it should be correct, right? Let's say
Okay.
if you have like a username, password, and you have token, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand what like a standard you are going to use, right? If you're using GWT, you need to understand how you are going to store the token, where are you going to store it, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
let's say if you store the token in web browser, right? Anyone
Mm-hmm.
can have access to it. Okay, so here come another question. When server receive a request from front end from mobile or web, it should
Okay.
like validate where it is coming from. And
Yeah.
this is like coding side, right? But there is also infrastructure side. So in infrastructure, you need to make sure like you give access to this service only from the like the website or mobile app, right? So that other people from public internet, they can't access to this particular service. Let's say you have like an application that has microservices, right? So
Yeah.
you have one main API which is communicating with like client, and this could be accessible by internet. But the sub services, they are not, they should not be like visible from public, right? So
Yeah.
therefore, you like hide it, and they communicate with main API like using different protocols, not necessary to HTTP. It can be like TCP or any other protocol, right?
Awesome. I mean, it's just great how we can make sure that,
Mhm.
um, JWT can be used, to make to make the applications way more secured. And of course, identity services like I am in AWS can also do
Yeah.
that identity check to assign roles and tokens as well. That is so good to know. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So let's move on to our next question.
Sure.
Of course, whenever we deploy application, it's almost like throwing a big party, right?
Mhm.
So you throw a massive party, aka deploying your application, and you're like, yeah, I finally got it, into the cloud. And then you try to send out the invites, of course, whereby you use some CLI commands, and then boom, everything crashes. You get the 404 error, and you're like, I did everything right. I used all the CLI commands, I deployed everything right into the cloud. Why is this happening? So basically, your app is probably saying, hey, no one's home today. What's really happening behind the scenes? I mean, why the 404 error?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, in order to first of all avoid that, when you build like the production infrastructure, right, UAT or development should be built the same way, right? Like in production, if you are using like ECS or
Mhm.
like cloud run in GCP, right, the same thing should be used for development. So you have identical infrastructure, and this is how you can prevent these kind of problems, right?
Yeah,
So, and apart from like unit test, apart from regression test,
yeah,
when you build this and then when you test development and UAT environment, you should
okay,
be fine with production. And
Okay.
yeah, always. And another thing is always make sure you have like kind of like logging system in production environment, so you can then later on comment with, okay, here there was this mistake, so you can immediately fix it, or
Mhm.
it should even like send the error right away when there is something in production, so you can prevent it, fix it for the next one. But basically, to completely not have this, you build the same
Okay.
cloud infrastructure in UAT environment and also in production. Because UAT, you test it before going live, right? So you're
Yeah.
working with this every day. Your client is testing, right? The other team members are working with this environment. So when it is
Absolutely.
good, then production should be good as well.
Absolutely. You just mentioned something really valuable. Actually testing it in the UAT first before putting it into live production.
Yeah, yes, for
In
sure.
in this regards, I mean, I'm just thinking, is this where Kubernetes and Docker also play a really good role in making sure that all of the applications sort of like are well managed inside one container, and then that avoids any probably like broken assets or anything that might cause the fall for error.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Like Dockerization are very helpful here.
Mm-hmm.
Even you can build the same Docker image locally, like developer can build this Docker image locally, run and
Okay.
test, right? Or you can, if there is a problem here, you can get the image, like Docker image, and try to run in another environment to find out the problem, right? So
Yeah.
that's why nowadays people tend to, maybe for development, they still, even if they don't use Docker, but like for production or cloud, they should use Docker because it's very helpful.
Awesome. That is really good to know. Absolutely. So we have this various cloud services with amazing features. I mean, sometimes,
Mm.
as a DevOps or as a solution engineer lead, you know, having to choose which cloud service you want to use for building an application. I mean, sometimes I don't know about you, but I used to feel like, oh, which one do I go with? So obviously, it's just like picking your favorite chocolate. Like, okay, this is my favorite. Oh, that's my favorite. So my question is, are you team AWS, team Azure, or just the cool kid Google Cloud Platform?
Uh, Nowadays work mostly with GCP, like Google
Okay.
Cloud and AWS.
Okay.
However, I use also some new other like serverless platforms like render.com, and I use Fly.io, especially for UAT
Oh,
environments. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I like AWS and GCP because I know so much about this and I can easily set up infrastructure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Okay.
these two are my favorite.
Okay. So basically, they're your favorite because you're used to them, or why are they your favorite? Why do you choose them?
Uh yeah, actually, there are many resources about this, right? So many people use it and they are very reliable. And they
Okay.
have, apart from like providing one service, let's say ECS Fargate, right? Or Kubernetes. Let's talk about AWS, right? But they
Yeah.
provide also so many other services that I use the same like account to build all these services. And they are
Yeah.
both good because they have these AIM roles, right? Users, both
Mm,
GCP and AWS. So
mhm.
like, you can like really build very good infrastructure and
Yeah.
using various services. Let's say for environment variables, you use secret manager, right? And
Yeah.
store your environment variables there. And then
Mhm.
you can use um, like Cognito for user authentication if you don't want to build your custom, right? There is also service to send emails. There is also service to work with various databases like relational databases, like NoSQL and others, right? So yeah, it
Absolutely.
helps to build like whole infrastructure within one platform, and
Yeah.
that's like important.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like, having all your tools in one toolbox.
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. And just because, you just spoke about AI, this question is regarding AI. So we know that cloud plus AI is like peanut butter and jelly. So
Mhm.
now, if jelly could predict the stock market, and with all of these fancy tools that you just talked about, like AWS Bedrock, Titanium, Microsoft AI Foundry, and just so many others. There's just so many AI tools that we have out there in the cloud service
Mhm.
market. So basically, what kind of superhero powers does the cloud give developers when they're building AI and IoT stuffs?
Sure. Oh yeah, this is a big topic. AI is nowadays, I find it very helpful and I use it to be more productive and to
Okay.
deliver faster than I was doing before, right?
Okay.
So another important thing is to know how to use AI, right? So
Mm,
sometimes when you give like very precise, detailed assignment, AI does very good job for you, right? But when
okay.
you like don't do it, sometimes it like, makes things up, right? So it doesn't work well, and then you need to go and manually check. So basically, it's very helpful. You save, like as a developer or engineering lead, I save a lot of time because of AI. And
Okay.
and it's also developing every day, right? So in
Mm,
future, we might have like totally different picture.
yeah.
However, this is something I think we need to take advantage and use it instead of worrying too much that it might replace us or, whatever people worry right now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
I think it's very positive. So just,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. Awesome. I mean, it's great to know that, it does save developers a ton of hours,
Hmm.
doing for pretty much everything that, developers, software
Hmm.
engineers, DevOps, and pretty much everyone within the tech ecosystem does. Like, it's really helpful in terms of productivity. So I
Hmm.
think, I think that is the superpower AI gives to the tech people.
Hmm.
So you can imagine what it does for people who use it that are not within the tech industry. Like, I think it's if it does increase our productivity, then people who are not even in the tech industry, you can imagine how way more productive that AI would be for them.
Hmm.
Also, okay, so there is another service cloud service offers, which is the virtual machines. Well, I always say virtual machines are like Airbnb
Hmm.
for developers, because obviously engineers could pretty much work from anywhere, you know. But basically, how reliable are they really? Do they hold up under pressure, or do they sometimes just check out? How reliable are virtual machines?
Virtual machines are, again, like here comes why I use virtual machine. Like, are you talking about like a deployment in production or just like working it locally?
That would be locally. So
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
virtual machine locally. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's that's helpful because let's say you are a developer and you have three clients, right? And you have three different technologies, or you have like uh one like one technology, but you are using different versions, right? You can
Mhm,
set up everything in locally, right? It just doesn't make sense. So you need to have like either Docker or virtual machine. So I can
mhm.
set up your, development environment in virtual machine, and then you start using it. Because things are changing, you are changing version, so you are changing different things. So you can't have everything in your local machine. It just doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
yeah, yeah. And that's why it would be great if the virtual machine, if we had something like, for example, something that maybe you were working in, let's take for instance, you're working in Toronto, and of course you are based in Vancouver. And then what happens is you get to use the virtual machine that the head office in Toronto is allows you to work on their applications. So I think, how reliable would that be, knowing that, you are, the virtual machine is somewhere, in
Mm,
or somewhere else, and you are in Vancouver having to work. So basically, if anything happens to the virtual machine in Toronto, does that disrupt your work? And and that is where the reliability
mm,
comes. Yeah,
mhm.
obviously, when it comes to projects, every project has a time frame, timeline, and that everything has to be delivered on time.
Yeah.
So my question is, how reliable are virtual machines in this context?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So, virtual machines are depend what where you buy it, right?
Okay.
If the services who provide you this virtual machine, is there any like backup system behind it, right? Because that's
Right.
a number one question. What if
Mm,
like something happens with server? Am I going to lose the data? Yes. In that case, I'm not going to use that service, right? So number
that's
one question, is there any backup plan so I can always get my virtual machine? If yes, then so you know it's very reliable to use it, right? And
absolutely.
also, yeah, and also apart from that, we also like push the code in like Git repository or some other places. So it's not only in virtual machine, but yeah, that's number one thing is uh to make sure we have backup and also like important to the
Yeah.
performance, right? Because we
Yeah.
connected remotely, I connect from Vancouver, I connect from Armenia. Is it going to be the same performance? Is it going to be fast enough so I can develop my code?
Absolutely.
If yeah, yeah. So this is another important question.
Yeah. So you think that with the help of the backup that virtual machines does, it will be reliable to work from any part
Yes,
of the world?
yes, yes. That's a very good thing, like especially developers like they go here and there, right? They travel, they work from different like locations. So it's good to have because like you can have your laptop with you, but what if
Mhm.
something happened to your laptop, right? So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great to know.
mm,
Uh, so now, some businesses are still treating cloud like it's some kind of futuristic technology, whereby sometimes some are already on their way to Mars, which they've already taken off with cloud technologies, but some are still using, on-premise, sort
mm,
of servers and all that. So my question is, um, on a scale of a floppy disk to quantum computing, how
mm.
crucial is it for businesses to get on the cloud train?
Yeah, I think that's very important because cloud is has so many like advantages compared with on-premise. And
Okay.
there are there is security, scalability. Those are like very important. Some businesses they just don't need it because they are good with what they have. And
Mm-hmm.
some businesses they say, oh, it's gonna be like too much work to do this, right? But eventually, uh, today or tomorrow you're gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I think it's important to move from on-premise to cloud and the
Yeah.
cloud that we have now because in I think the next generation
Yeah.
going to be because it's like an evolution, right? So it was before like on-premise, now it's cloud. I think the
Yeah.
next is going to be like serverless. So for example, now we
Mhm.
build like we do so many configuration in cloud, right?
Yeah.
Like DevOps or like engineering lead does so many like configuration and
Yeah.
you sometimes do the scaling manually, you do certain things, right? I think the next generation will be like completely like serverless, where you don't care about configuration, you just deploy it and
Yeah.
you pay what you use, right? So you don't pay like for example, if you buy EC2 server, even if
Mm-hmm.
you don't use it, you are going to pay for whole EC2, right? But if you are using like GCP Cloud Run, you pay
Yeah.
only for what is used, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like more serverless, more automated, so that
Mhm.
you know. I think it's a like evolution that's going to happen. So you know,
Yeah.
I recommend like businesses to go from on-premise to cloud. Yeah.
Uh, Awesome. That is so great to know. Yeah, absolutely. I also recommend that as well. I mean, it's better
Mm.
to get on the cloud train. So just because you mentioned EC2 services that AWS offers, so let's say you were deploying an application and suddenly the clouds are asking if you want to be in America, in Europe, or any part of the world. What's really going on with the geolocation choices within the cloud services?
Yeah. So yeah, this geolocation is very important part because let's say if your software is in uh, America, right? And so
Okay.
that is also nature of the software, what data you have, right? If it is like
Hmm.
medical information, then definitely it can't be any other region. It must be
Okay.
in America. Let's say you
Ah,
are in a West Coast, so you might use like, California region,
mhm.
and the same in Canada, right? Let's say
Yeah.
we are building like lawyer referral service. So for
Okay.
Canadian clients, we store data in Canada. For US clients, we store data in US. So first question is where you want to store data. This is like
Okay.
related also to regulations and data security. And
Okay.
so if you don't have this problem, you just choose whatever you like, and because some are like relatively cheaper,
Okay.
some like relatively expensive, and it could also a little bit be connected with where are your clients, right? So
Absolutely. Okay. It makes a lot of sense now. Where
yeah,
do you want to get clients from, or where are your clients based?
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a great answer. Yeah. So I mean, I heard when using cloud services, you can change the IP addresses. It's just like switching outfits on the video game Avatar. Well, how easy is this to do? Is it really like a one-click flex, or do you need like a black belt in networking to pull this off?
Like you mean change IP address of like server
Yeah.
or?
Yeah, the server IP address within the cloud service.
Yeah, like for example, in AWS and in GCP, there is a service that allow you to create new public IP address and
Mhm.
attach to particular server. So yes, you can do it this way. And
Okay.
also, if you, but sometimes you don't use IP address, so you use the URL they are providing as host name. Let's say you are connecting to database, right, or EC2 server. But yeah, they provide a service where you can create new public IP address within a
Mm,
range and assign to that particular service.
mm. Okay, that's really good. So basically, you're saying that if I deploy an application today on a cloud service, I can
Mhm.
decide to say, well, I want to change the IP address,
Yes,
and I
yes, you can do
use
it.
cloud services to do this.
That's correct.
Okay, also, that is really good. So we are at the final question.
Sure.
I've had such an amazing time and I didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
But of course, my final question is, let's say I've never heard of the cloud architecture or what the cloud service is all about. And I think it's really cool. Well, basically because I watched Cassell and Garnick talk about cloud services on Tech
Mhm.
Laughs and Bytes. Now, what are the basic must know? I mean, the juicy stuffs that cloud services offers for someone who's just stepping into the cloud world.
Uh, yeah. So the Yeah, okay. So the person who is coming from on-premise to cloud, the one
Absolutely.
important thing, yeah, that there is so many nice tools to scale, right? And
Okay.
it doesn't like you don't do it everything manually. There are like auto scaling, like ability that is
Okay.
very helpful. So it scale when it's need to, when it doesn't need to, it use less service, like less resources, right? The scalability part, and also having just one big toolbox for your product, so you don't deal with different like companies, different services, right? So you just deal with one organization. Those two are very important.
Absolutely. So the fact that they know they would see the value in security, in
Mhm.
scalability, and of course, just kind of like an all-round performance of the
Yes.
application is definitely why they should go into, or rather start using cloud
Yeah.
services.
Yes. Sure.
Also, I've had such an amazing time, Organic, in discussing cloud services, and thank you for being part of this. And of course, we would want to bring you again at some point to Tech
Sure.
Laughs and Bytes to discuss more wonderful topics within tech. So thank you very much
Yeah.
for.
Thank you too.
So all right, thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.